the singing abyss of the Marianas. In late 2023, a research vessel in the Western Pacific recorded something unprecedented, a complex, seemingly structured series of tones emanating from the deepest part of the Marianas Trench. This was no random noise or typical whale song. When specialized deepwater hydrophones were deployed to depths exceeding 10,000 meters, they captured acoustic patterns that left marine biologists and sound engineers equally baffled. What makes these recordings particularly unsettling is their mathematical precision. Analysis revealed the sound sequences follow prime number patterns, first in groups of 3, then 5, then 7, 11, and 13. This level of numerical structure doesn't occur randomly in nature. The sounds themselves consist of tonal shifts that maintain consistent intervals, almost like an alien scale that repeats with variations that seem to follow syntactical rules. Dr. Eliza Montero, head of acoustic oceanography at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, stated, "These aren't biological sounds as we understand them. No known marine creature produces vocalizations with this level of mathematical complexity. What's equally puzzling is that the sounds don't match geological phenomena either. The rhythmic precision and frequency modulations suggest something. Deliberate. The recordings differ fundamentally from known biological sources. Unlike whale songs that follow predictable patterns, these sequences contain embedded subpatterns and what appears to be recursive elements, sounds within sounds. Geological explanations fall equally short. While underwater volcanoes and tectonic movements produce distinctive sounds, they lack the structured complexity and precise timing evident in these recordings. Perhaps most concerning has been the reluctance of certain research institutions to release the full recordings. Only heavily edited 30-second clips have been made public, with authorities citing various technical reasons for withholding the complete datasets. This has fueled speculation among the scientific community about what might be contained in the unedited versions. Theories attempting to explain the phenomenon range widely. Marine biologists suggest the possibility of undiscovered deep-sea creatures with advanced communication abilities. Geologists propose elaborate resonance chambers formed by unique trench formations that amplify and structure random sounds. More controversial explanations involve human activity, perhaps classified deep-sea installations or equipment. Dr. Hiroshi Yamaguchi, an acoustics expert who analyzed the available clips, raised concerning possibilities. The patterns show characteristics we associate with communication, specifically the repetition with variation that suggests information encoding. The sounds contain what appear to be introductory sequences, followed by more complex middle sections, and concluding elements similar to how paragraphs are structured in human language. Most disturbing was what happened when researchers attempted communication. Using specialized equipment, they projected similar tonal patterns back into the deep. Within hours, the original signals ceased completely. For 3 weeks, the hydrophones detected nothing normal ocean ambient noise. Then, just as researchers were preparing to retrieve their equipment, a single new sequence was detected, a perfect reverse playback of the signal they had sent, followed by silence that has persisted ever since. The black smoker anomaly. During a routine survey of hydrothermal vents in 2024, an unmanned submersible encountered something that caused several leading marine biologists to question everything they knew about deep-sea evolution. The ROV Odysseus was documenting black smoker chimneys along the mid-Atlantic ridge when its cameras captured formations that defied conventional understanding of both biology and geology. The black smoker vent system itself was unusual, nearly twice the height of typical formations, with a distinctive spiral structure that created an almost architectural appearance. But what drew scientific attention were the complex structures surrounding the vent that appeared to be neither fully biological nor entirely mineral in nature. These formations exhibited cellular-like structures embedded within crystalline matrices, with filaments extending between them to create what one researcher described as a neural network made of stone and living tissue. Dr. Sophia Dimitriou of the European Deep Sea Research Initiative observed, "What we're seeing doesn't fit into our taxonomic systems. The structures show organization, patterns similar to colonial organisms, but with symmetry and geometric precision that suggests either an unknown form of biological growth or something else entirely." The formations exhibited hexagonal chambers connected by tubular structures, with the entire system oriented toward the vent's thermal output. Most remarkable was the discovery that these structures were growing and changing at rates visible even between observation periods. When the submersible returned to the same location 72 hours later, the formations had expanded by approximately 18%, with new chambers and connections that maintained the same organizational principles. The scientific community quickly split into competing camps. A team from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography suggested these might represent an entirely new domain of life, neither bacteria, archaea, nor eukarya, potentially a silicon-based life form that evolved independently in the extreme pressure and temperature conditions of deep-sea vents. Others from MIT proposed these were complex mineral formations created through previously unknown geochemical processes, accelerated by unusual electromagnetic conditions in that section of the ridge. Adding to the mystery, samples retrieved from the site contained compounds never before documented on Earth. Analysis revealed silicon organic molecules that appeared to be capable of storing and transferring information in ways reminiscent of DNA, but using entirely different chemical pathways. These molecules demonstrated self-repair capabilities when damaged and responsiveness to electrical stimulation. Dr. Marcus Chen, a biochemist who examined the samples, reported, "These structures blur the line between living and non-living in ways we've never seen. They process energy, respond to stimuli, and appear to reproduce through a form of crystalline division. Yet, they're operating on chemical principles that contradict what we thought were universal constraints on how life can function. The mystery deepened when equipment left to monitor the site experienced catastrophic malfunctions after just 2 weeks. All cameras and sensors ceased transmitting simultaneously, with recovery efforts revealing devices that appeared partially dissolved and infiltrated by the same crystalline organic material observed in the structures. Shortly thereafter, international authorities declared a 5-kilometer exclusion zone around the vent system, citing ecological safety concerns. No research team has been granted access since. The Antarctic ice shelf transmissions. In the winter of 2022, seismic monitoring equipment beneath Antarctica's Pine Island Glacier began detecting regular pulses of energy that scientists initially mistook for equipment failure, until they realized the pulses were coming from something beneath the seafloor. The discovery occurred during routine climate research operations, monitoring ice melt patterns, when seismographs began recording rhythmic vibrations at precise 12-hour intervals. Dr. Lars Johansen, the glaciologist who first documented the anomaly, described the findings. At first, we thought it was interference from our own equipment, or perhaps distant shipping. But after triangulating the source, we realized these pulses were emanating from approximately 900 meters below the seafloor, in what should be solid bedrock, according to our geological surveys. What particularly alarmed researchers was the timing precision. The pulses initially occurred exactly at solar noon and midnight, regardless of local time zones, suggesting they somehow tracked the sun's position relative to Earth. More concerning was how, over subsequent months, the frequency of these pulses began to increase, eventually occurring every 6 hours, then every 3, with intensity that grew proportionally stronger. Analysis revealed another disturbing pattern. The signals appeared to be responding directly to changes in the ice shelf above. When satellite data showed accelerated melting in specific regions, the pulse patterns would shift toward those areas within days, almost as if mapping the transformation of the ice. During one period, when temperatures temporarily stabilized and ice melt slowed, the pulses briefly ceased altogether before resuming with even greater intensity when melting continued. The international scientific community's response was notably divided. The Chinese Antarctic Research Expedition deployed additional monitoring equipment, while American and European teams were abruptly recalled from nearby research stations. Official explanations cited weather concerns, but leaked communications revealed intense disagreement about whether the phenomenon should be publicly disclosed. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a geophysicist from the University of Chile who accessed the data, noted, "What few people realize is that similar signals have been detected near the Thwaites Glacier and in parts of East Antarctica, but those findings were classified and never publicly reported. The patterns show subtle variations but share the same fundamental structure, like different dialects of the same language. Perhaps most concerning were the unusual electromagnetic properties accompanying these pulses. They generated localized magnetic field distortions that affected compass readings and electronic equipment up to 80 kilometers away. During the most intense pulse sequences, research station personnel reported seeing unusual auroral phenomena directly above the source locations, despite there being no solar activity that would normally trigger such displays. Satellite imagery later revealed the most unsettling aspect of all geometric patterns forming in the ice directly above the transmission sources. Perfect hexagonal formations began appearing, visible only from high altitude, with diameters ranging from 50 to 200 meters. When scientists attempted to reach these formations on foot, unexpected crevasse formations or weather conditions invariably blocked their path. The hexagons remain visible to this day, slowly expanding while maintaining their perfect geometric proportions, even as the ice around them continues to melt. The floating forest mystery. In 2021, satellite imagery detected something impossible in a remote part of the South Pacific, a massive floating structure composed of interwoven organic material spanning nearly a square kilometer, moving against prevailing currents with apparent purpose. Initial analysis by oceanographers dismissed the formation as an unusually large mass of kelp or marine debris, common in certain ocean gyres where currents concentrate floating material. However, when drone footage was obtained 2 weeks later, it revealed something far more puzzling. Rather than random accumulation, the structure exhibited complex organizational patterns. Dense, fibrous material formed interconnected nodes, with thin filaments extending between them in patterns resembling neural networks or circuit boards. Most disturbing was how these patterns would reorganize over time, shifting from one geometric arrangement to another while maintaining the overall structural integrity. Marine biologist Dr. Julian Reeves, who led the first close observation team, reported, "What we're seeing contradicts known biological processes. The material appears to be composed primarily of cellulose and chitin, but engineered into structures that no single organism should be capable of producing. More concerning is how it responds when approached. Indeed, the formation displayed unmistakable reactions to external stimuli. When research vessels approached within 1 kilometer, portions of the structure would rapidly reconfigure, creating thicker, more densely packed regions facing the approaching ships. Remote sampling attempts were consistently thwarted as the material would physically withdraw from mechanical collection devices, maintaining a constant distance regardless of pursuit speed. Over the following months, satellite tracking revealed the formation was gradually moving in a straight-line path toward the Tonga-Kermadec Trench, one of the deepest ocean regions in the South Pacific. This movement occurred against both prevailing currents and winds, suggesting some form of self-propulsion. Calculations indicated the structure was moving at a steady pace that would bring it above the trench within approximately 8 months. Some marine biologists proposed theories of a new form of colonial superorganism, perhaps an evolutionary leap by certain species of marine life forming a collective entity. Dr. Amara Nwakalo of the International Marine Biological Association suggested we may be witnessing the emergence of a metaorganism where thousands of individual creatures have developed a way to function as a unified whole, similar to how cells in our bodies form tissues and organs, but on a much larger scale. Adding to the mystery, research vessels detected unusual electromagnetic readings emanating from within the structure. Regular pulses of low-frequency electromagnetic radiation, patterned in ways similar to extremely slow data transmission, were recorded whenever the formation underwent significant structural reorganization. Attempts to analyze these emissions revealed encoding that appeared to contain mathematical sequences of prime numbers. The mystery came to an abrupt climax when a minor submarine volcanic eruption occurred near the Tonga archipelago in late 2021. Within hours of the seismic event, the entire formation abruptly submerged, disappearing from both visual and radar observation. Search operations found no trace of the material, leading researchers to conclude it had either been destroyed or had intentionally retreated to depths beyond detection capability. The scientific community had just begun to dismiss the event as an anomalous, but concluded phenomenon when reports emerged of similar, smaller structures appearing near deep ocean trenches in the Indian Ocean and the Sea of Japan, all exhibiting the same neural-like patterns and electromagnetic emissions. USOs, when unknown objects emerge from the depths. Navy pilots don't frighten easily, but in 2004, something from the ocean depths sent elite aviators into a state of awe and confusion. During routine training exercises off the coast of San Diego, fighter pilots from the USS Nimitz carrier group encountered objects rising from the ocean that performed aerial maneuvers, defying our understanding of physics and aerodynamics. Commander David Fravor, an experienced FA-18F pilot, described watching in disbelief as an oval-shaped craft, approximately 40 feet long with no visible propulsion system, ascended from beneath the waves. It was white, had no wings, no rotors, no exhaust, nothing, he later reported. Then it began moving with speed and agility I've never seen in any aircraft. It would drop from 80,000 feet to sea level in less than 2 seconds, with no deceleration and no sonic boom. What made these encounters particularly credible were the multiple radar systems that tracked these objects simultaneously. The advanced AN-SPY-1 radar aboard the USS Princeton had been detecting these anomalous objects for weeks before the visual encounters. The objects appeared on radar to drop from above 80,000 feet, far higher than conventional aircraft can operate, to hover just above sea level within seconds, before disappearing beneath the ocean surface. These objects were transitioning from air to sea with no splash, no deceleration, noted Senior Chief Kevin Day, the Princeton's radar operator. They could operate in air, water, and the boundary between them with equal ease, something no human technology can do. What the public doesn't realize is that similar incidents have been reported by naval forces worldwide for decades. Russian naval documents declassified after the fall of the Soviet Union describe silver discs emerging from the Baltic Sea during fleet exercises in the 1970s. Japanese maritime self-defense force records contain multiple accounts of objects tracked moving from depths of over 1,000 feet to altitudes above 30,000 feet within minutes. Theories about these transmedium objects range widely. Some marine biologists suggest they might be undiscovered marine creatures with biological adaptations we don't understand. Defense analysts propose they could represent advanced technology developed by competing nations. Others point to the consistency of these sightings across centuries and cultures as evidence they might not be of terrestrial origin at all. Perhaps most compelling is the testimony from military witnesses with nothing to gain and potentially their careers to lose. Lieutenant Alex Dietrich, who also witnessed the 2004 Nimitz encounter, stated, "We're trained observers. We know what aircraft, drones, balloons, and birds look like. This was something else entirely. It reacted to us as though it was intelligently controlled." In 2021, the Pentagon released a preliminary assessment of what they now call unidentified aerial phenomena, acknowledging that some encounters involve objects demonstrating breakthrough technology and confirming several cases where these objects transition between space, air, and underwater environments. The report notably avoided speculation about origins, but admitted that many incidents remain unexplained despite analysis by the most sophisticated sensor systems in the world. Most disturbing to naval experts is the implication that something has been operating in our oceans, possibly for decades or longer, with technological capabilities far beyond current human achievement. If these objects aren't ours, the question becomes whose they are, and why they seem particularly interested in our naval operations, nuclear facilities, and the deepest parts of our oceans, the Bermuda Triangle's underwater mysteries. While the Bermuda Triangle's reputation may be exaggerated, beneath its waters lie genuine scientific puzzles that defy conventional explanation. The roughly 500,000 square mile region stretching from Miami to Bermuda to Puerto Rico has become infamous for alleged disappearances. But scientists have discovered actual anomalies that might explain some of the area's mysterious events. In 2010, oceanographers from the University of Southampton discovered unusual methane hydrate deposits on the seafloor within the triangle. These ice-like structures contain vast amounts of methane gas trapped within a crystalline water structure. What makes these deposits unique, explains Dr. Richard Thompson, is their instability and concentration. Under certain pressure and temperature conditions, they can rapidly dissolve, releasing enormous gas bubbles that could potentially engulf ships. Laboratory experiments have demonstrated that when methane bubbles up through water, it decreases the water's density. A ship floating in such conditions would suddenly lose buoyancy. Essentially, the water would no longer be able to support the vessel's weight, causing it to sink rapidly without time for distress calls. Even more concerning, these gas eruptions could create aerosol conditions above the water surface capable of affecting aircraft engines and instrumentation. Perhaps more alarming are the massive underwater caves and sinkholes discovered throughout the region. The Bahamas' blue holes, underwater cave systems that can collapse without warning, represent some of the largest and most unpredictable submarine cave networks on Earth. These structures are constantly evolving, notes marine geologist Dr. Alina Perez. We've documented cases where stable seafloor terrain has suddenly given way to massive sinkholes over 300 feet in diameter, essentially swallowing everything above them. The region also exhibits unusual magnetic anomalies that have been scientifically verified. Compass readings in certain parts of the triangle can vary by 10 to 20 degrees, enough to significantly throw off navigation systems. While the standard explanation involves natural variations in the Earth's magnetic field, the concentration and intensity of these anomalies remain puzzling to geophysicists. Adding to the scientific intrigue was the 2001 discovery of underwater megalithic structures near Bimini. Initially dismissed as natural formations, detailed imaging has revealed geometric precision and right angles that rarely occur in nature. Dr. Jackson Moore of the Oceanographic Institute of Florida notes, some of these structures appear to have been deliberately placed. The question isn't whether they're unusual, it's whether they represent an unknown ancient civilization or some natural process we don't yet understand. The scientific theory of rapid gas releases has gained credibility as an explanation for some disappearances. In what's known as the bubble theory, methane eruptions could potentially create conditions where ships lose buoyancy instantly. Computer models suggest such events could occur with little warning, explaining why vessels might disappear without distress signals. Similar aerosol conditions above the water could potentially affect aircraft instruments or engine combustion. One specific case that continues to baffle investigators is the disappearance of Flight 19-5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that vanished in December 1945 during a training mission. What makes this case particularly strange isn't just that the aircraft disappeared, but that the experienced flight leader reported compass malfunctions and disorientation, stating, "Everything looks wrong. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should." The search plane sent to find them also disappeared. Scientists from multiple disciplines continue investigating these phenomena, utilizing advanced sonar mapping, chemical analysis, and magnetic field studies. Recent expeditions have deployed autonomous underwater vehicles capable of creating detailed 3D maps of the seafloor, revealing previously unknown features, including what appear to be perfectly circular depressions over 500 feet in diameter, with unusual material compositions that don't match surrounding geology. North Sea underwater cities. Beneath the cold waters of the North Sea lies evidence of an ancient civilization erased not by war or disease, but by rising seas. In what archaeologists now call Doggerland, an area once connecting Britain to continental Europe, lies one of the most remarkable lost landscapes ever discovered, revealed not by traditional archaeology, but by the same oil company survey equipment used to find fossil fuel deposits. The story began in the early 2000s when petroleum geologists mapping the North Sea floor noticed unusual formations that didn't match natural geological patterns. What they initially dismissed as irrelevant data proved to be the outlines of an entire prehistoric world. Advanced sub-bottom profiling technology revealed a vast underwater landscape of hills, river valleys, and lake beds preserved beneath sediment layers, a terrain that had remained hidden since being submerged at the end of the last ice age. What's remarkable about this discovery, explains marine archaeologist Dr. Bryony Coles, is that we're not just finding scattered artifacts, we're seeing entire landscapes with settlement patterns preserved in extraordinary detail. Indeed, subsequent expeditions have recovered stone tools, weapons, carved figurines, and even human remains dating from 10,000 to 8,000 BCE, suggesting a sophisticated culture thrived here before the waters came. Perhaps most striking is evidence that these weren't simple hunter-gatherer camps, but organized settlements with signs of social complexity. Underwater excavations have revealed stone foundations arranged in circular patterns, suggesting permanent dwellings. Artifacts show remarkable craftsmanship, including delicate bone needles, decorated pottery shards, and what appears to be astronomical marking systems carved into various materials. The flooding that destroyed this civilization would have been catastrophic, but gradual enough for inhabitants to witness their world slowly disappearing. Around 8,200 years ago, a massive glacial lake in North America called Lake Agassiz catastrophically drained into the Atlantic Ocean. This influx of freshwater, combined with already rising sea levels from melting ice sheets, accelerated the inundation of Doggerland. Archaeological evidence suggests generations might have experienced the slow drowning of their homeland, with settlements showing signs of adaptation, raised structures, and platforms before final abandonment. Some researchers propose that this lost civilization may have been more advanced than previously thought possible for that time period. Dr. Richard Bates of the University of St. Andrews notes, the complexity of some recovered artifacts suggests sophisticated understanding of mathematics and astronomy that contradicts our understanding of Mesolithic technological development. These people may have possessed knowledge we previously attributed only to later Neolithic cultures. Analysis of organic materials recovered from the seabed reveals a people who had mastered animal domestication, agriculture, and complex wood and bone crafting techniques thousands of years earlier than previously thought possible. DNA analysis of recovered human remains shows genetic markers distinct from later European populations, suggesting this culture may represent a branch of humanity that was nearly completely lost when their homeland vanished beneath the waves. Perhaps most sobering is how climate change at the end of the Ice Age transformed this region from a fertile plain to an underwater archaeological site. As Dr. Laura Spinney of the European Institute of Marine Archaeology observes, what happened to Doggerland represents one of the most significant climate catastrophes in human history. An entire culture, possibly tens of thousands of people, lost their homeland, not over centuries, but within a human lifetime. The North Sea discoveries offer a powerful reminder of how similarly rapid changes could affect our coastal populations today. With current projections of sea level rise, many of the world's major cities could face inundation within coming generations, a parallel not lost on researchers studying these submerged landscapes. The forgotten people of Doggerland may have much to teach us about adaptation, migration, and the preservation of cultural knowledge in the face of environmental catastrophe. Julia, the ocean's ghost signal. In March 1999, an underwater sound was detected that science still cannot fully explain, a haunting signal that many believe wasn't made by any known natural process. Sound, nicknamed Julia by researchers at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, was captured by the U.S. Navy's sophisticated SOSUS sound surveillance system, a network of hydrophones originally designed to track Soviet submarines during the Cold War, but now partially repurposed for scientific research. Unlike other mysterious ocean sounds that have been recorded and subsequently explained, Julia remains an anomaly that defies conventional categorization. The signal lasted for approximately 2 minutes and consisted of a complex ascending pattern that rose steadily in frequency before abruptly terminating. What makes Julia particularly unusual is its acoustic signature, a combination of mechanical precision and organic variability that doesn't align with either biological or geological sources. Dr. Christopher Fox, who led NOAA's acoustic monitoring program at the time, noted, "What distinguishes Julia from known ocean sounds is its hybrid nature. It contains elements we associate with biological sources, like whale calls, but overlaid with components that appear almost mechanical in their precision. It's as though something was intentionally modulating a natural sound." The signal's extraordinary travel characteristics further compounded the mystery. Julia was detected nearly simultaneously by hydrophones separated by thousands of miles, indicating an extremely powerful source capable of projecting sound through the deep sound channel, an underwater layer where sound waves become trapped. and can travel enormous distances with minimal degradation. This property is typically associated with massive events like underwater explosions or large-scale geological activity. Analysis revealed Julia's fundamental differences from other ocean phenomena. Unlike ice calving events, which produce cracking sounds, seismic activity, which generates low-frequency rumbles, or biological sources, which follow species-specific patterns, Julia exhibited what acoustics experts describe as deliberate frequency modulation changes in tone that follow mathematical relationships rather than random variations. Dr. Alexandra Rivero, a marine bioacoustics specialist who analyzed the recordings, observed, "The signal contains distinct sections that almost appear encoded blocks of sound that repeat with slight variations, similar to how digital information might be packaged. This isn't something we typically see in natural acoustic events." Theories attempting to explain Julia range from the conventional to the extraordinary. Some researchers propose it might represent an unknown interaction between ocean currents and unusual seafloor formations, creating a type of giant resonance chamber. Others suggest it could be a previously undocumented vocalization from deep-dwelling marine mammals, perhaps even a hybrid vocalization from multiple species vocalizing in synchrony. More controversial explanations include the possibility of human activity, classified military technology being tested in deep waters. However, the signal doesn't match known submarine or sonar signatures, and its power requirements would exceed capabilities of most underwater vehicles. Some researchers reluctantly acknowledge that Julia's characteristics are consistent with an intelligent source attempting communication using the ocean's natural acoustic properties. Perhaps most unsettling is that similar sounds continue to be detected by hydrophone networks around the world, but most recordings remain classified. According to former Navy acoustic analyst Warren Thompson, there's a category of underwater signals that don't get publicly released because they can't be readily explained. Julia is just one that happened to be declassified. There are others with even more unusual properties that remain restricted due to what some analysts believe might be their artificial origin. The oceans, covering over 70% of our planet, and with depths largely unexplored, may contain acoustic phenomena beyond our current understanding, or perhaps, as some researchers quietly suggest, evidence that we are not the only intelligence utilizing the world's oceans as a communication medium. Julia's haunting tones continue to represent one of oceanography's most persistent enigmas, a ghost signal from the depths that whispers of mysteries we have yet to solve. The Phantom Submarine Chase. In 2018, the Swedish Navy deployed its entire naval force to hunt something moving through its territorial waters, something that shouldn't exist. What began as routine monitoring quickly escalated into one of the largest anti-submarine operations in the Baltic Sea since the Cold War. For nearly a week, Sweden's coastal waters near Stockholm's archipelago became the stage for a high-stakes naval operation that would leave military analysts worldwide questioning what exactly had been detected in those waters. The incident began when Sweden's sophisticated underwater detection systems picked up unusual acoustic signatures moving through narrow channels in the Stockholm archipelago, waterways too shallow for conventional submarine operations. What immediately caught our attention, explained Captain Lars Engström of Swedish Naval Intelligence, was the object's movement pattern. It maneuvered through restricted channels with precision that suggested either advanced autonomous technology or exceptional crew training beyond known capabilities. Unlike conventional submarines, this contact exhibited behavior that defied explanation. It would remain completely motionless for hours, seemingly shut down, only to suddenly accelerate to speeds estimated at over 30 knots underwater, far faster than any known submarine can travel while submerged. More perplexing was its apparent ability to change its acoustic signature, at times appearing on sonar as a submarine, then transforming to mimic the profile of a large marine mammal before disappearing entirely. As the Swedish military deployed corvettes, minesweepers, helicopters, and amphibious forces to establish a search perimeter, the contact demonstrated an uncanny ability to evade the most advanced detection systems. Visual confirmation proved impossible despite the narrow confines of the archipelago and shallow waters that should have forced any conventional submarine to surface or risk running aground. What we encountered challenges our understanding of underwater technology, admitted Rear Admiral Jonas Wickstrom in a classified briefing later, leaked to journalists. The object appeared capable of remaining stationary on the seafloor for extended periods without detectable emissions, then moving rapidly without conventional propulsion noise. Our sonar operators reported acoustic properties that don't match any vessel in our signature database. This Swedish incident joins a disturbing pattern of similar events reported by other navies worldwide. In 2009, Scotland's Faslane Naval Base, home to Britain's nuclear submarine fleet, initiated an emergency response when unknown contacts penetrated its secure perimeter underwater. The Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force has documented over 30 encounters with what they classify as USOs, unidentified submersible objects, in the Japan Trench between 2013 and 2020, describing them as metallic objects moving at speeds exceeding 70 knots underwater velocities that would tear conventional submersibles apart due to water resistance. Most theories regarding these phantom submarines focus on Russian experimental technology, particularly small autonomous underwater drones or specialized mini-submarines. However, Russia's known submarine technology, while advanced, doesn't explain the observed capabilities. Other analysts point to potential breakthrough propulsion systems using supercavitation, creating a bubble of gas around a vessel to reduce water resistance. But even these theoretical systems couldn't account for the maneuverability and acoustic properties reported. The historical context adds another layer of mystery. Reports of ghost submarines date back to the Cold War era, when both NATO and Soviet submarine commanders occasionally encountered unidentified underwater contacts, exhibiting similar impossible speeds and maneuverability. Admiral Vladimir Chernovin, former commander-in-chief of the Soviet Navy, acknowledged in a 1997 interview that Soviet submarines had encountered underwater phenomena that moved in ways no known technology could achieve throughout the 1970s and 1980s. The Stockholm incident concluded when the contact abruptly disappeared from all monitoring systems simultaneously, despite deploying Sweden's entire anti-submarine capability and receiving covert assistance from NATO assets. Whatever had penetrated Swedish waters apparently exited undetected. No conventional explanation has ever been provided, and the official investigation remains classified at the highest levels. What was being pursued in those cold Baltic waters? A revolutionary underwater drone, an experimental submarine utilizing physics we don't yet understand, or something else entirely. The Swedish Navy continues to upgrade its detection systems, and similar incidents have since been reported in Norwegian fjords and Baltic coastal waters, suggesting that something continues to operate beneath the waves, something that by all conventional understanding of submarine technology shouldn't exist. USS Scorpion vanished without explanation. In May 1968, a nuclear submarine with 99 sailors aboard disappeared in perfectly calm seas, leaving behind only a mystery that deepens with each new piece of evidence. The USS Scorpion, a Skipjack-class nuclear attack submarine, was returning to its home port in Norfolk, Virginia, after a routine deployment in the Mediterranean Sea. On May 21, it sent a routine position report indicating it was approximately 50 miles south of the Azores. Then silence. When the submarine failed to arrive in port on May 27, the Navy initiated what would become one of the largest search operations in naval history. No distress call had been received. No unusual weather had been reported. The Scorpion had simply vanished in calm, open waters. For 5 months, ships scoured the Atlantic before finally locating the wreckage 400 miles southwest of the Azores in over 10,000 feet of water, one of the deepest successful searches ever conducted. What they found defied simple explanation. The Scorpion lay in 6 major pieces on the ocean floor, with the sail conning tower separated from the hull and the engine section torn away. This pattern didn't match typical implosion damage seen when submarines sink past their crushed depth. More puzzling was evidence suggesting the submarine had been traveling at high speed when catastrophe struck, unusual for a vessel nearing its home port after a long deployment. What immediately struck investigators was the absence of any emergency communication, explains former Navy Captain James Bradley, who participated in the investigation. Submarines have multiple emergency systems designed to deploy buoys that rise to the surface and transmit distress signals. None were deployed. Whatever happened to Scorpion occurred so catastrophically fast that the crew had no time to react. The official Navy investigation concluded that a torpedo had accidentally activated inside the submarine, a finding that many experts found unconvincing. The acoustic evidence, especially recordings from the SOSUS underwater listening network, didn't support this scenario. SOSUS had captured a complex sequence of sounds lasting nearly 3 minutes, including what appeared to be a series of small explosions before the final catastrophic event, inconsistent with a single torpedo detonation. Dr. Robert Ballard, who would later discover the Titanic, and who was involved in classified aspects of the Scorpion investigation, noted, the destruction pattern of Scorpion doesn't align with our understanding of how submarines break apart under pressure. Something unusual happened to that vessel before it reached crush depth. Adding to the mystery were classified intelligence reports suggesting Soviet naval vessels had been operating in the area when Scorpion disappeared. Cold War tensions were high, and just 3 months earlier, the Soviet submarine K-129 had mysteriously sunk in the Pacific under equally baffling circumstances. Some analysts proposed a theory of underwater confrontation, that Scorpion may have been tracking a Soviet vessel when something went catastrophically wrong. Perhaps most disturbing was the unusual positioning of the wreckage. Analysis of undersea currents and debris patterns indicated the submarine had not sunk directly to the seafloor, but had traveled horizontally underwater for some distance before the final breakup occurred. This suggested the vessel might have been under some form of control, however compromised, before its destruction. Acoustic analyst Bruce Rule, who spent decades analyzing SOSUS recordings, offered a different interpretation. The acoustic signatures suggest a possible progressive failure starting near the submarine's battery compartment, followed by flooding, emergency reactor shutdown, and then a series of secondary failures before the pressure hull collapsed. 55 years later, crucial evidence about the Scorpion remains classified. The Navy has never fully explained why certain aspects of the investigation have been kept secret long after the Cold War ended. Multiple Freedom of Information requests have been denied, with documents heavily redacted without explanation. What happened in those final minutes aboard USS Scorpion? Why has so much evidence remained classified decades after the Cold War? The 99 sailors who perished deserve answers. Yet their fate remains one of the most perplexing maritime disasters of the modern era. A submarine that vanished without warning in calm seas, leaving behind broken metal and unanswered questions. The UVB-76 radio signal the ocean's buzzer. When we compared the timing and pattern to known signals, we found an exact match with UVB 76. The underwater transmission was occurring simultaneously with the radio broadcast, but originating from deep water sources. Further investigation located underwater transmitter sites in the Norwegian Sea, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and unexpectedly in the Western Pacific near the Mariana Trench. These transmitters were positioned at depths exceeding 3,000 meters, far beyond conventional submarine operating parameters. More puzzling was their construction. Remote imaging revealed structures that appeared partially integrated with the surrounding rock, as though they had been installed decades ago, and gradually become encrusted with marine growth. The signal itself possesses unique characteristics that distinguish it from normal military or navigation broadcasts. The continuous buzzing tone repeats at precisely 25 tones per minute, with each buzz lasting exactly 1.2 seconds. Spectral analysis reveals embedded subharmonics, tones below human hearing range, but detectable by specialized equipment that follow mathematical sequences similar to prime number series. These subharmonics change subtly on predictable cycles corresponding to lunar phases. What's remarkable about the underwater component, notes former Naval Intelligence Analyst Commander James Hadley, is how it's engineered to use the ocean itself as an amplifier. The transmitters are positioned within natural undersea canyons that act as acoustic waveguides, allowing the signal to propagate thousands of miles while maintaining coherence. This isn't technology from the 1980s. It's beyond our current capabilities. Theories about the signal's purpose range from military communications to something more exotic. The conventional explanation that it's a Russian military channel doesn't account for the deep ocean transmitters or the signal's resilience. Throughout political upheavals, power outages, and technological transitions, the buzzer has continued uninterrupted. When attempts have been made to jam or interfere with the signal, it instantaneously shifts to alternate frequencies before returning to its original broadcast pattern. Perhaps most unsettling are the rare voice transmissions that interrupt the buzzing approximately 3 to 5 times yearly. These broadcasts typically consist of number sequences, Russian phrases, and occasionally words in languages linguists have struggled to identify. In 2013, a particularly unusual transmission included what appeared to be phonetic sequences that didn't correspond to any known language, followed by an extended segment of binary code that, when decoded, produced complex mathematical equations related to oceanic pressure calculations. Dr. Korotkova and her team discovered that these voice transmissions coincide with significant oceanic events, major storms, underwater seismic activity, and in one documented case, 18 hours before a tsunami struck the Indian Ocean. The timing suggests the system might function as some form of early warning network, she proposed. But that raises the question of who built it and who receives these warnings. The technology required to maintain transmitters at these depths exceeds publicly acknowledged capabilities. The signal has demonstrated remarkable resistance to interruption or interference. During a NATO exercise in 2015 that included electronic warfare components, multiple attempts to jam the frequency were made. Not only did the signal persist, but hydrophone arrays detected increased activity from the underwater transmitters, almost as if the system was responding defensively, while official agencies remain silent about the underwater component of UVB-76. The underwater buzzer continues its mysterious broadcast from the ocean depths, a constant presence in the deep soundscape that might represent an unknown warning system, a communication channel for purposes we don't understand, or perhaps something monitoring our oceans with technology that shouldn't exist. Who installed these transmitters decades ago in some of the most inaccessible places on Earth? And who or what continues to maintain them remains one of the ocean's most persistent mysteries. Gulf of Mexico blue holes, portals to another world. Miles offshore in the Gulf of Mexico, perfectly circular holes in the seabed descend into unknown depths, containing life forms that shouldn't exist. In 2020, scientists from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, made a startling discovery while mapping the seafloor approximately 30 miles west of Sarasota, Florida. A perfectly circular blue hole spanning 425 feet in diameter and plunging to depths yet to be fully measured. Unlike their coastal counterparts commonly found in the Bahamas and Caribbean, these offshore blue holes exist in complete isolation, surrounded by hundreds of miles of flat, featureless seafloor. Their perfect circular symmetry defies conventional geological explanation, with vertical walls descending at precise 90-degree angles into darkness. But what truly astonished researchers was what they found living inside. These holes exist in what should be a desert-like environment with minimal oxygen, explains marine biologist Dr. Emily Grayson, who led the initial exploration. Instead, we discovered thriving ecosystems containing organisms that, by every principle of marine biology, shouldn't be able to survive there. Most puzzling were species that appear to have evolved in complete isolation from their nearest genetic relatives. Inside these mysterious formations, scientists documented bacteria capable of metabolizing sulfur instead of oxygen, creating an entirely alternative biological system. More shocking was the discovery of complex multicellular organisms, including previously undocumented translucent crustaceans and echinoderms with unusual symmetrical patterns, living in water with oxygen levels 50 times lower than what's considered necessary to support such life. DNA analysis of samples retrieved from these depths revealed something even more puzzling. These organisms share almost no genetic markers with their closest visual counterparts in the surrounding Gulf. Some contain novel protein structures and metabolic pathways never before documented in any life form on Earth. Dr. Kenneth Marlowe of the Marine Genomics Institute noted, "It's as though these creatures evolved on a completely different evolutionary track, isolated from the rest of Earth's biosphere for potentially millions of years. The geometry and placement of these formations challenge our understanding of geological processes. Ground-penetrating sonar revealed that many blue holes connect to vast underground cave systems, extending miles beneath the seafloor, networks far too complex to have formed through known erosion or dissolution processes. More puzzling is evidence suggesting these cave systems interconnect despite being separated by dozens or even hundreds of miles on the surface. Water behavior around these formations exhibits properties that contradict standard hydrodynamics. Currents near the openings follow counterintuitive patterns, sometimes flowing against prevailing ocean movements, or creating perfect vortices that maintain stable rotational patterns regardless of surrounding conditions. Temperature measurements show impossible gradients, with sharply defined boundaries between different water masses rather than the gradual transitions normally observed in ocean environments. But perhaps the most disturbing discoveries came from the sediment cores extracted from the walls of these structures. Samples from just 20 feet below the rim contained microfossils of species that went extinct over 12 million years ago, somehow preserved in layers that should be much younger. Deeper cores revealed manufactured materials, including processed metals and complex carbon composites, embedded within sedimentary layers dated to approximately 20,000 years ago, long before human civilization developed such technologies. What we're finding simply doesn't align with our understanding of either natural processes or human history, admits geological oceanographer Dr. Thomas Harrington. These structures appear engineered rather than natural, yet they would have required technology beyond our current capabilities to construct, and they exist in layers of seafloor that predated human civilization. Adding to the mystery was the 2022 discovery of what appeared to be deliberate arrangements of stone artifacts near the rim of a particularly large blue hole 45 miles northwest of Key West. The objects, forming perfect geometric patterns aligned with specific astronomical orientations, were covered with carvings resembling script or notation, unlike any known ancient writing system. Dating techniques placed these artifacts at approximately 15,000 years old, thousands of years before known complex civilizations existed in the Americas. As exploration continues, these enigmatic formations, which some researchers have begun informally calling portals, challenge fundamental assumptions about geology, biology, and perhaps human history itself. Whatever created these perfect circles in the Gulf seafloor left behind ecosystems that operate on different biological principles, and possibly evidence of technological advancement where none should exist, doorways to what seems like another world entirely, hidden in plain sight just miles from American shores. The lost fleet of Kublai Khan. In 2015, marine archaeologists located what might be the greatest lost naval fleet in history, Kublai Khan's armada, destroyed not by enemies, but by a force of nature that defies explanation. The discovery, made in the East China Sea between Japan and Korea, finally provided physical evidence for one of history's most consequential weather events, a typhoon so severe and seemingly targeted that the Japanese called it kamikaze, or divine wind, believing it had been sent by the gods to protect their homeland. The historical record tells us that in 1274 and again in 1281, Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan and emperor of the vast Mongol Empire, launched massive naval invasions against Japan. The Second Fleet, comprising over 4,400 ships and 140,000 men, represented the largest naval invasion force assembled before the 20th century. Both fleets were destroyed by typhoons of such unprecedented intensity and precise timing that they permanently altered the course of Asian history, preventing Mongol domination of Japan. Marine archaeologist Dr. Randall Morris, who led the underwater survey team, described the initial discovery. We found debris fields stretching across an area roughly the size of London. The preservation of many artifacts was exceptional, likely due to rapid burial in sediment during the violent storm events. What immediately struck us was the advanced design of the recovered vessels. These weren't simple medieval ships. Indeed, examination of the wreckage revealed ships with technology centuries ahead of their time. Many featured watertight bulkhead compartments, a safety feature not adopted in Western shipbuilding until the 19th century. Others showed evidence of advanced metallurgy, with bronze fittings containing precise alloy mixtures for maximum strength and corrosion resistance. Most impressive were the massive war junks with reinforced keels and innovative rudder systems that wouldn't appear elsewhere in the world for hundreds of years. But what truly puzzled researchers was evidence suggesting the divine wind was unlike any normal typhoon. Computer modeling of the wreck distribution patterns indicated the fleet wasn't simply pushed toward shore as would be expected in a conventional storm. Instead, ships appeared to have been scattered in a radial pattern, as though affected by a massive rotating force, with its center precisely at the fleet's location. Meteorologist Dr. Keiko Tanaka, who analyzed historical weather records alongside the archaeological findings, noted the damage patterns we're seeing don't align with normal tropical cyclone behavior. The force required to create this specific distribution of wreckage would require wind speeds far exceeding those of even Category 5 typhoons, focused in an unusually tight area. Contemporary Japanese accounts described phenomena inconsistent with normal weather events. Chronicles mention fire from heaven-striking Mongol ships, water spouts rising like mountains, and black clouds that moved against the wind. Modern meteorologists suggest these might represent descriptions of massive ball lightning, localized waterspouts, and mesocyclones, all extremely rare events that coincidentally occurred simultaneously during both invasion attempts. Perhaps most intriguing was the recovery of what appears to be a Mongol commander's log, preserved in an airtight bronze container. The partially decipherable text describes a great spinning darkness that came not from the shore, but rose from beneath the waves, followed by accounts of ships being lifted from the water before being smashed back down. These descriptions align more closely with massive rogue waves or localized tsunami effects than with typical storm surge patterns. Dating of seafloor sediment layers surrounding the wrecks revealed another anomaly, evidence of massive underwater landslides and unusual seismic activity coinciding exactly with the dates of both invasion attempts. This suggests the possibility that submarine earthquakes may have contributed to the destructive forces, potentially triggering localized tsunami events that historical observers would have interpreted as part of the storms. The fleet's wide dispersal pattern presents another enigma. Wrecks have been found across an area spanning over 200 nautical miles, far too great a distance to be explained by a single storm, even one of exceptional magnitude. Some vessels appear to have been transported against prevailing currents, ending up in locations that would have been hydrodynamically impossible to reach under normal circumstances. Something extraordinary happened to Kublai Khan's fleet, concludes Dr. Morris. Whether it was an unprecedented combination of multiple rare meteorological phenomena occurring simultaneously, or something else entirely, the result permanently altered Asian history. Had either invasion succeeded, the entire cultural development of East Asia, and perhaps world history, would have followed a dramatically different path. The remains of Khan's lost armada continue to yield new discoveries, but the exact nature of the divine wind that destroyed history's largest invasion fleet until D-Day remains one of maritime archaeology's most enduring mysteries. A perfect storm that seemed too perfect to be entirely natural. The Mediterranean's lost technology. In 1901, divers near Antikythera recovered an object that would challenge our entire understanding of ancient technology, a mechanical computer 2,000 years old. The unassuming corroded mass of bronze gears and dials, retrieved from a Roman-era shipwreck between Crete and mainland Greece, initially seemed unremarkable among the cargo of statues, pottery, and coins. Only decades later, when advanced imaging techniques revealed its internal structure, did archaeologists realize they had discovered something impossible, a mechanical calculator of extraordinary sophistication, created over a millennium before such technology was thought possible. The Antikythera mechanism, as it came to be known, contained over 30 precisely engineered bronze gears arranged in a differential system capable of tracking astronomical movements with astonishing accuracy. This single artifact obliterated our understanding of ancient technological capabilities, explains Dr. Alexander Edmonds, archaeologist at the Museum of Ancient Innovation. It could predict solar eclipses, track the movements of 5 known planets, and model the irregular orbit of the moon with an error of just 1 degree every 500 years. Modern reconstructions have confirmed the device could simulate the entire known cosmos as understood by the ancients, displaying the positions of celestial bodies at any selected date, past or future. The engineering precision required is astounding. Some gears contain teeth less than 1.5 millimeters in size, cut with an accuracy that would challenge modern machining techniques. Metallurgical analysis reveals bronze alloys specifically formulated for hardness and durability, with compositions not rediscovered until the Industrial Revolution. What truly disturbs historians is the mechanism's technological isolation. Nothing of comparable complexity appears in the archaeological record for another 1,400 years. It's as if someone dropped an iPhone into medieval Europe, notes historian Dr. Eleni Papadakis. We have no precedents showing the development of this technology, no subsequent devices showing its continued evolution. It's a technological singularity that appears fully formed and then vanishes completely from human knowledge. The craftsmanship exceeds even what was possible during the Renaissance. The differential gearing system, allowing one gear to subtract the movement of another, was not reinvented until the 16th century. The precision of the astronomical calculations programmed into its wheels reveals mathematical understanding thought impossible for the ancient world. Most puzzling is the miniaturization. Examination under X-ray computed tomography revealed components and inscriptions visible only under magnification, suggesting tools and techniques previously thought unavailable until the 18th century. We must confront an uncomfortable possibility, suggests Dr. Marco Stavru, expert in ancient Mediterranean civilizations. Either our entire timeline of technological development is wrong, or this knowledge existed in isolation, restricted to a small group that subsequently vanished, taking their expertise with them. The Mediterranean seafloor may hold answers. Since the Antikythera discovery, systematic surveys have revealed over 700 ancient shipwrecks preserved in the oxygen-depleted depths. Most remain unexplored due to depth, cost, and preservation challenges. Limited surveys of several wrecks have yielded tantalizing fragments, partial gear assemblies, precision-marked bronze plates, and components suggesting other sophisticated devices may await discovery. In 2017, divers returning to the original Antikythera wreck site recovered additional fragments, including what appears to be components of a second mechanism. More intriguing was the recovery of what archaeologists have cautiously identified as a primitive form of battery, bronze and iron cylinders, with evidence of acidic residue consistent with electrochemical activity. If confirmed, this would predate the previously oldest known batteries, the Baghdad batteries, by several centuries. These discoveries raise profound questions about lost knowledge. What caused such advanced understanding to disappear so completely that it took mankind over a millennium to rediscover these principles? Some scholars point to the burning of the Library of Alexandria, which may have destroyed vast repositories of technical knowledge. Others suggest that such technology may have been closely guarded by specialized guilds or mystery schools, whose knowledge died with them during the chaotic collapse of classical civilization. The implications extend beyond archaeology into the philosophy of human progress. Our narrative of steady technological advancement, from simple to complex, may be fundamentally flawed. Instead, history may contain peaks of remarkable innovation, followed by massive regressions, knowledge gained, and subsequently lost multiple times. The Antikythera mechanism stands as physical proof that some ancient minds understood principles of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering to a degree not reached again until the scientific revolution, raising the disturbing question: what else might we have known and subsequently forgotten? The deep sea megamouth, a new species hiding in plain sight. In 1976, a U.S. Navy ship hauled up something impossible, a 15-foot shark from a species that science had never seen, despite its massive size. The creature, caught accidentally when it became entangled in a sea anchor off the coast of Hawaii, represented one of the most significant zoological discoveries of the 20th century. A shark so distinctive, it required an entirely new taxonomic family. Marine biologists were left with a profound question: how could such a large animal remain completely unknown to science? The megamouth shark, Megachasma pelagios, wasn't merely another variation of a known species. Its enormous mouth, capable of opening nearly 4 feet wide, unique filtering structures, and distinctive body plan made it as different from other sharks as wolves are from whales. This wasn't just another shark species, explains marine biologist Dr. Sylvia Whitman. Finding megamouth was equivalent to discovering elephants for the first time in the modern era. It forced us to confront how much remains unknown in our oceans. What makes this discovery so unsettling is the shark's size. While new insect or microbial species are discovered regularly, finding a previously unknown animal weighing over 2,700 pounds defies explanation. More perplexing is that megamouth isn't restricted to extreme environments that might explain its long concealment from science. It inhabits mesopelagic zones accessible to research vessels, occasionally approaching coastal waters, and reaches lengths of up to 18 feet. Genetic analysis revealed something even more startling. The megamouth lineage is ancient, having diverged from other shark species approximately 25 million years ago. This means this massive animal has been swimming in our oceans for millions of years without detection. Notes evolutionary biologist Dr. James Keller. It forces us to ask, what else of significant size might still remain undiscovered? The shark's unique features suggest specialized evolution, unlike any other known predator. Its enormous mouth contains a bioluminescent tissue along the jawline that researchers believe acts as a lure, attracting plankton and small fish that mistake the glow for natural light filtering from above. More unusual is its feeding mechanism. Rather than actively hunting, it appears to operate as a passive filter feeder, slowly cruising through the water with its cavernous mouth open. But perhaps most puzzling is its elusiveness. After its initial discovery, no new specimens were documented for 9 years. Even now, fewer than 100 confirmed sightings exist worldwide, extraordinarily few for a large marine animal. Some specimens have been found in areas previously surveyed extensively by research vessels, suggesting they were there all along, but somehow avoided detection. What the megamouth demonstrates is how effectively the ocean can hide even massive creatures, explains deep-sea ecologist Dr. Teresa Nguyen. We've mapped the surface of Mars more comprehensively than our ocean floors. If an 18-foot shark can remain effectively invisible to science until the late 20th century, we must acknowledge that our understanding of marine life remains fundamentally incomplete. The discovery has profound implications for marine conservation and biodiversity estimates. Current calculations suggest there may be as many as 2 million undiscovered species in the oceans, but most models assume these would be microorganisms or small creatures in extreme environments. The megamouth case suggests large, complex vertebrates may still await discovery, potentially including species that could revolutionize our understanding of marine evolution. Some biologists have proposed that the megamouth may represent what they call a Lazarus taxon, a group believed extinct that has survived undetected into the present. This raises the possibility that other supposedly extinct marine species might still exist in the vast, unexplored regions of our oceans. The deep scattering layer, a zone of the ocean where sonar signals scatter due to dense biomass, could potentially hide numerous large species, visible to sonar only as indistinct masses. The shark's discovery was a humbling reminder for marine science, a field that had confidently declared most large marine animals cataloged by the mid-20th century. If a 15-foot shark with a mouth large enough to swallow a human whole could evade scientific documentation until 1976, what else might be swimming in the ocean's twilight zones? The megamouth stands as testament to the ocean's capacity to conceal secrets, even those of enormous proportions, challenging our assumption that the era of discovering large new species is behind us. The deepest Dive's unexpected encounter. When Victor Vescovo descended to the deepest point on Earth in 2019, his submarine's cameras captured something that shouldn't have been there. The American explorer and his team were conducting the Five Deeps expedition, a mission to reach the deepest points in each of the world's 5 oceans. On April 28, Vescovo piloted the specialized deep submergence vehicle limiting factor to the bottom of the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters, 36,000 feet below sea level, a realm of crushing pressure and perpetual darkness. At these extreme depths, conditions are among the most hostile on the planet. Water pressure exceeds 16,000 pounds per square inch, equivalent to having 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of you. Temperatures hover just above freezing, and no light penetrates from the surface. These conditions have made the Hadal Zone depths below 6,000 meters the least explored environment on Earth. Scientists expected to find minimal life, perhaps a few specially adapted microorganisms, and the occasional bizarre deep-sea creature. What they didn't expect to find was plastic. Among the photographs and samples brought back from the expedition was undeniable evidence of human pollution. A plastic bag and candy wrappers resting on the seafloor at the Earth's deepest point. This discovery was disturbing enough, confirming that even the most remote environments on our planet have been contaminated by human activity. But it wasn't what caused Vescovo and his scientific team to question what they saw. During the 4th hour of the dive, as limiting factor traversed a previously unmapped section of the trench floor, the submarine's forward cameras captured something moving, an object approximately 3 meters long, with a reflective surface that briefly came into view before disappearing behind a rock formation. The object moved with apparent purpose, changing direction in a manner inconsistent with deep ocean currents, which tend to be minimal at such depths. At first, I thought it was another submersible, Vescovo later stated in a limited interview. It moved with deliberation, not like any creature I'd expect at that depth. When I realized there were no other vessels capable of operating at that depth anywhere in the world, I couldn't explain what I was seeing. The submarine's scientific team, led by marine biologist Dr. Alan Jamieson, was equally perplexed. The object's size exceeded that of any fish known to inhabit Hadal depths by several orders of magnitude. Its movement patterns didn't match known behaviors of deep-sea creatures, which typically move slowly to conserve energy in the food-scarce environment. Most puzzling was the apparent reflectivity of its surface. Biological organisms in the deep sea tend to be either transparent or darkly pigmented to hide from predators, not reflective. Additional passes through the area revealed no further sign of the object, but sonar mapping detected an unusual cavity in the trench wall approximately 400 meters from the original sighting. A perfectly circular opening approximately 4 meters in diameter that penetrated beyond the sonar's range. This formation was flagged as geologically anomalous in the expedition's official reports, with notes indicating it didn't match known processes that form submarine caves or channels. The team's official statements about the encounter have been notably measured. The expedition press release mentioned only unexpected biological observations that would require further scientific review. Privately, expedition members have described the footage as challenging to reconcile with known marine biology and suggesting the presence of unclassified biological or geological phenomena. Dr. Jamieson, known for his caution and scientific rigor, carefully framed the observation. The deep ocean remains the most underexplored environment on our planet. At these extremes of pressure and darkness, we regularly encounter organisms that challenge our understanding of how life can adapt. What we observed requires further investigation before definitive statements can be made. Vescovo himself has been more forthcoming in private scientific gatherings. At a closed-door presentation to the Explorers Club in 2020, he reportedly stated, "We went to the absolute frontier of our planet and found evidence we are not the first to visit. I'm not claiming to know what we saw, but I am certain it displayed characteristics of technological origin rather than biological evolution." The raw footage from this segment of the dive has not been released publicly, with expedition organizers citing technical quality issues. Several marine scientists who were granted access to the complete expedition data subsequently received research funding from defense-related agencies to develop improved imaging systems for hadal environments, suggesting what was captured, however briefly and unclearly, has prompted significant interest from organizations not typically involved in deep-sea exploration. The black hole of the ocean. In the South Atlantic exists a spinning vortex of water so powerful it has earned the name black hole of the ocean, and it's growing. These massive oceanic eddies, scientifically known as Agulhas rings, form at the southeastern tip of Africa, where the warm Agulhas current of the Indian Ocean meets the colder Benguela current of the Atlantic. What makes them extraordinary isn't just their size, but their surprising similarity to cosmic phenomena. These are the largest eddies in the world, explains Dr. Sophia Chen, physical oceanographer at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. The largest we've measured exceeded 400 kilometers in diameter, roughly the distance from London to Paris, with depths reaching 2,000 meters. But what makes them truly remarkable is how they break all the rules we thought governed ocean dynamics. Unlike typical ocean currents that gradually mix with surrounding waters, Agulhas rings maintain their integrity across thousands of miles, trapping and transporting entire ecosystems inside their boundaries. Water inside these massive vortices remains distinct in temperature, salinity, and chemical composition from the surrounding ocean, creating what oceanographers call ocean-within-ocean systems that can persist for years. These rings transport enormous volumes of water, up to 30 million cubic meters per second, equivalent to 100 times the combined flow of all the world's rivers. The water moves in a perfect counterclockwise rotation, creating a depression in the sea surface that can reach up to 2 meters lower than surrounding waters, literally pulling the ocean downward in a manner eerily similar to how black holes warp space-time. What concerns scientists most is the increasing frequency and intensity of these phenomena. Dr. Wolfgang Berger of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography notes, in the 1960s, we typically observed 5 to 7 major Agulhas rings forming annually. By 2020, that number had increased to over 20. They're not just more numerous, they're larger, spin faster, and penetrate further into the Atlantic than ever recorded. The impact on marine life is profound and sometimes disturbing. Ships crossing the boundaries of these eddies report sudden, dramatic changes in water conditions, temperature jumps of up to 7 degrees C within minutes, accompanied by violent, localized storms, as cold air masses over the surrounding ocean collapse into the warmer core. Marine animals caught inside these vortices are effectively transported across thousands of miles, introducing species into environments where they don't belong. Commercial vessels have reported harrowing experiences when encountering the largest rings. Captain Maria Suarez of the container ship Maersk Edmonton described her 2019 encounter. We hit the boundary at night. Suddenly, the ship began to turn despite the rudder being centered. Our instruments showed conflicting readings, water flowing in opposite directions simultaneously. For nearly an hour, we lost effective control of the vessel as it was pulled toward the center of the vortex. These oceanic black holes possess another disturbing property. They appear capable of swallowing smaller eddies they encounter, growing in both size and energy. Satellite tracking has documented multiple cases where 2 Agulhas rings have merged, creating an even larger vortex with combined energy, a process oceanographers compare to galactic collisions. The mysterious increase in these phenomena may be linked to climate change. As ocean temperatures rise, the temperature differential between currents intensifies, providing more energy to drive these massive rotational systems. Computer models suggest that if current trends continue, by 2050, the South Atlantic could contain semi-permanent super rings with diameters exceeding 600 kilometers, large enough to encompass entire countries. Dr. Berger warns, these aren't just oceanographic curiosities. They represent fundamental changes in how energy moves through our oceans. Each ring transports massive amounts of heat from the Indian Ocean into the Atlantic, potentially altering circulation patterns that have remained stable for thousands of years. The most alarming aspect may be how these oceanic black holes could potentially interact with climate systems. The warm cores of these eddies release enormous amounts of moisture into the atmosphere, potentially triggering extreme weather events thousands of miles away. Some climatologists have already linked the formation of unusually large Agulhas rings to subsequent flooding in Western Europe and drought conditions in parts of South America. As these massive vortices grow in size, frequency, and power, they represent a profound reminder of how little we understand about the complex fluid dynamics governing our oceans, and how changes in these systems might reshape our planet's climate in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. The ghost ship Bechimo, Arctic Phantom. For nearly 4 decades, a ghost ship sailed the Arctic Ocean with no crew, appearing and disappearing like a phantom on the horizon. The SS Bechimo, a 1,322-ton cargo steamer built in Sweden in 1914, became one of maritime history's most enduring mysteries, a vessel that refused to sink, navigating some of the world's most treacherous waters entirely on its own for 38 years. The ship's strange journey began in October 1931, when it became trapped in early season pack ice near Barrow, Alaska, while on a routine fur trading voyage for the Hudson's Bay Company. As winter descended and the ice thickened, the captain ordered most of the crew to evacuate to the mainland, leaving behind a skeleton crew to guard the valuable cargo. On November 24, a violent blizzard engulfed the region with hurricane-force winds and temperatures plunging to minus 60 degrees F. When the storm cleared the next morning, the crew discovered something impossible. The Bechimo had vanished completely. Assuming the ship had broken apart and sunk during the night, the men prepared to trek back to civilization. 3 days later, an Inuit hunter arrived with shocking news. He had spotted the Bechimo floating intact nearly 45 miles away. The crew located their ship, retrieved the most valuable cargo, and abandoned the vessel, certain it would break apart in the next storm. The Bechimo, however, had other plans. Over the subsequent months and years, the empty ship was sighted repeatedly across the Arctic Ocean, sometimes hundreds of miles from its last known position, always unmanned, yet somehow remaining afloat and navigating the treacherous ice fields that had claimed countless other vessels. What makes the Bechimo case so unusual isn't just that it remained afloat, though that's remarkable given Arctic conditions, explains maritime historian Dr. Alina Tremaine. It's that the ship navigated around ice formations and through narrow straits that would challenge even experienced Arctic captains. Empty vessels don't typically thread their way through ice mazes with apparent purpose. Throughout the 1930s and 40s, multiple attempts were made to salvage or board the vessel. In 1932, a trading party boarded her successfully, but was forced to abandon her when a storm arose. In 1933, she was found frozen in an ice pack by an Eskimo who explored inside for a few days. In 1934, a crew from the ship Trader actually lived aboard her for 10 days, until shifting ice threatened to crush the hull. Each time, the Bechimo somehow broke free and continued her solo journey across the Arctic. One of the most puzzling aspects was the ship's apparent ability to navigate through the Northwest Passage, a treacherous sea route through the Arctic archipelago, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. In 1939, the Bechimo was spotted near Point Barrow, Alaska. 2 years later, she was sighted off the northwestern coast of Canada, having somehow traversed a passage that had claimed dozens of fully crewed vessels throughout history. The ship's appearances became legendary among Arctic communities. Inuit hunters reported seeing lights aboard the vessel, despite its abandoned status. Commercial airline pilots began reporting sightings of the ship from the air, noting with puzzlement how it always seemed to be navigating in open water channels between ice flows, behavior that suggested intentional course, plotting rather than random drifting. The patterns of movement don't align with what we know about Arctic currents, notes Dr. Martin Shoemaker, oceanographer specializing in polar regions. Based on reconstruction of sighting locations, the Bechimo sometimes appears to have moved against prevailing currents or maneuvered through narrow ice channels with precision that defies explanation by wind or current alone. The ghost ship's final confirmed sighting came in 1969, 38 years after its abandonment, when it was spotted frozen in an ice pack between Point Barrow and Icy Cape, Alaska. A salvage expedition was planned for the following summer, but when teams arrived, the Bechimo had once again vanished without a trace. No wreckage has ever been found, despite modern sonar surveys of the seafloor in areas of its last known positions. Some researchers speculate that the Bechimo may still exist, trapped beneath permanent Arctic ice or drifting in remote regions rarely traversed by shipping. With climate change opening new Arctic waters, there remains the possibility that this maritime phantom could re-emerge from the mists after more than half a century. The Bechimo's decades-long unmanned voyage represents one of seafaring's greatest enigmas. A ghost ship that traversed thousands of miles through the world's most dangerous waters without a crew, appearing and disappearing at will, navigating ice fields with uncanny precision, and potentially still sailing silently beneath the Arctic ice, crewed only by shadows and questions that may never be answered. The hostile waters of Point Nemo. At Earth's oceanic pole of inaccessibility lies Point Nemo, the most remote location on the planet, and something about its waters disturbs even experienced sailors. Named after Jules Verne's submarine captain, this singular spot in the South Pacific sits precisely 2,688 kilometers, 1,670 miles, from the nearest land in any direction. It exists as geography's ultimate expression of isolation, a place where the closest humans are often the astronauts orbiting overhead in the International Space Station, closer to this point than any person standing on dry land. But Point Nemo's isolation represents merely the first layer of its unsettling nature. What truly sets this oceanic region apart is the profound lifelessness that pervades its waters. Scientists call it an oceanic desert, but even this term fails to capture the eerie sterility of the environment. The peculiar convergence of ocean currents around this remote coordinate creates what oceanographers term a low biological productivity zone, a scientific euphemism for water so devoid of nutrients that it barely sustains microbial life, let alone larger organisms. The technical explanation involves the South Pacific Gyre, a massive circular current system that isolates these waters from nutrient-rich coastal runoff. But this clinical description does little to convey the unnatural clarity of water that should be teeming with plankton, or the unsettling silence detected by acoustic surveys that should register the clicks, songs, and movements of marine life. This absence of life made Point Nemo the perfect target for what humans have turned it into: a spacecraft cemetery. When satellites and space stations reach the end of their operational lives, mission controllers plot trajectories to ensure these massive objects crash into these remote waters. Over 260 spacecraft, including Russia's massive Mir space station, have been deliberately crashed into the region since 1971. The remote location minimizes the risk to human populations, while the extreme depth, averaging 4,000 meters, ensures the wreckage remains undisturbed. Or does it? Research vessels venturing into these waters report equipment malfunctions with troubling frequency. Compass readings fluctuate unexpectedly. Sonar systems return false echoes or fail entirely. GPS coordinates require constant recalibration. Scientists attribute these anomalies to the region's unique position relative to Earth's magnetic field and the unusual composition of the underlying seafloor. But crew members often describe a more visceral response to the area. There's something wrong with the water itself, reported Chief Engineer Miranda Callisto of the oceanographic vessel Horizon during a 2017 research expedition. It doesn't move the way water should. When you're on watch at night, you'll see patterns on the surface that don't match the wind conditions or current charts. The motion seems almost deliberate. Multiple research missions have documented another peculiarity. Sound behaves differently at Point Nemo. Acoustic tests reveal that certain frequencies propagate farther than the laws of physics predict, while others become mysteriously attenuated. During a classified U.S. Navy sound propagation test in 2001, hydrophones detected what was described in the partially redacted report as acoustic anomalies, resembling artificial structures at depths exceeding 7,000 meters, despite no known natural or human-made structures existing at such depths in the region. Most disturbing are the periodic explosions of biological activity that contradict the region's designation as a dead zone. Every few years, scientific monitoring stations detect massive blooms of bioluminescent organisms that appear suddenly, persist for days or weeks, defying all known biological cycles, and disappear just as mysteriously. Satellite imagery has captured vast circular patterns of luminescence spanning hundreds of kilometers, organized in geometric arrangements that marine biologists struggle to attribute to natural causes. In 2019, an autonomous underwater vehicle conducting a routine survey of spacecraft debris fields, recorded an unexpected temperature anomaly. A perfect column of water 5 degrees warmer than the surrounding area, extending from the surface to the seafloor with clearly defined boundaries that defied thermal diffusion principles. The same vehicle's cameras captured images of the seafloor showing what appeared to be geometrically precise depressions around crashed spacecraft components, patterns inconsistent with natural settling processes. The official explanation attributes these phenomena to unusual geothermal activity combined with the region's unique oceanographic properties. But as one veteran sailor reportedly etched into the horizon's logbook, there's something alive about the deadness here. The emptiness feels deliberate. It's not that nothing can live here, it's that nothing is allowed to. The lost city of Dwarka, Krishna's sunken kingdom. Off the coast of India lies a vast underwater city that, according to legend, was home to a god, and according to archaeology, shouldn't exist at all. In the azure waters of the Gulf of Combat, also known as the Gulf of Cambay, along India's northwestern coast, marine archaeologists have uncovered what may be one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in human history. Beginning in 2001, researchers from India's National Institute of Ocean Technology were conducting routine pollution studies when their side-scan sonar revealed something extraordinary: geometric structures sprawling across the seabed, stretching for miles beneath the churning waters. What emerged from the murky depths wasn't merely scattered ruins, but the unmistakable footprint of an ancient metropolis. Stone walls, massive pillars, geometrically aligned structures, and what appear to be the foundations of enormous buildings spread across nearly 5 square miles of ocean floor. The ruins rest under nearly 130 feet of water, preserved in the silty seabed that has protected them from complete erosion for thousands of years. But it's not just the scale of the discovery that has archaeologists and historians struggling to reconcile their findings with conventional understanding. It's the age. Samples recovered from the site have been carbon dated to approximately 7,500 BCE, making this submerged city an astonishing 9,500 years old. This dating places the construction of this sophisticated urban center thousands of years before the earliest known civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt were thought to have developed the architectural and engineering knowledge necessary to build cities of this complexity. The implications are staggering. According to the established archaeological timeline, humans at this period were just beginning to develop agriculture, still living primarily as hunter-gatherers. The construction of massive urban centers with advanced engineering was thought to be millennia away. Yet here, stretching across the seabed, lies evidence that challenges everything we thought we knew about human technological development. What makes this discovery even more compelling is its striking correlation with ancient Hindu texts. According to the Mahabharata and Bhagavata Purana, the deity Krishna established his kingdom in a magnificent city called Dwarka or Dvaraka. described as a city of spectacular beauty with elaborate infrastructure. The texts describe how, following Krishna's death, the city was swallowed by the sea in a series of catastrophic events. For centuries, this account was regarded as mythological until the underwater discoveries began to suggest otherwise. The engineering evident in the submerged ruins points to sophisticated knowledge that simply shouldn't have existed in such an early period. Researchers have identified what appear to be irrigation systems, massive docks capable of accommodating large seafaring vessels, and elaborate water management structures. The stonework shows evidence of precise cutting and fitting techniques that would have required advanced tools and mathematical understanding. Artifacts recovered from the site include pottery, sections of walls, beads, sculpture fragments, and human remains. Perhaps most tellingly, the placement and design of the structures suggest urban planning on a massive scale, streets laid out in grid patterns, what appear to be public squares, and distinct architectural zones, possibly indicating different districts within the city. The discovery forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. What if our understanding of human history is fundamentally incomplete? What if advanced civilizations rose, flourished, and fell thousands of years before we thought possible? The underwater city in the Gulf of Combat suggests precisely this possibility, that human technological achievement may have reached surprising heights, only to be lost to time and tide, preserved only in the whispered echoes of ancient myths and legends. As researchers continue to map and study this underwater marvel, one thing becomes increasingly clear: the timeline of human civilization may need to be rewritten. The legend of Krishna's magnificent city, swallowed by the sea, may be more than myth. Beneath the waters off India's coast lies tangible evidence that our ancestors may have been far more advanced, far earlier than we ever dared imagine. The Vortex Incident, naval encounter with underwater craft. In 2020, 3 naval vessels from different nations encountered an object beneath the Persian Gulf that defied physics, moving from complete stillness to over 200 knots in seconds without creating a cavitation bubble. The incident began during what was supposed to be a routine joint naval exercise. American, British, and French vessels were conducting coordinated submarine detection drills in the deeper waters of the Persian Gulf. The exercise, codenamed Triton's Trident, was designed to enhance collaborative detection and tracking capabilities among the allied nations. What these naval powers encountered, however, was completely outside the scope of their training. At 400 hours, on March 17, 2020, sonar operators aboard the USS Chesapeake, a guided missile destroyer, detected an anomalous object resting motionless at a depth of approximately 700 feet. Initial readings classified it as a possible submarine, albeit with unusual dimensions, smaller than conventional military submarines, but with a strangely perfect cylindrical shape. The object showed no propulsion signatures, No mechanical sounds, nothing that would suggest it was a manufactured vessel. Yet, its geometric perfection ruled out natural formations. Following protocol, the Chesapeake alerted its exercise partners, the British HMS Vigilant and the French FNS Aquitaine. Within minutes, all three vessels had triangulated their sonar systems on the object, creating a comprehensive three-dimensional acoustic image. What they captured in those initial scans would later become the subject of intense scrutiny and classification. The object remained completely stationary for exactly 18 minutes. Then, without warning or any detectable power-up sequence, it accelerated from 0 to an estimated 210 knots in under 3 seconds, a rate of acceleration that would have instantly killed any human occupants and structurally compromised any known submarine hull. Even more baffling to the naval experts monitoring the situation was the complete absence of a cavitation bubble, the telltale signature of any object moving at high speeds underwater. It was as if the water wasn't there, reported Lieutenant Commander James Holden, the lead sonar technician aboard the USS Chesapeake. At those speeds, any object should create massive turbulence, bubbles, acoustic signatures. This thing moved through water like it was moving through empty space. The object's trajectory was equally perplexing. Rather than moving in a linear path, it executed a series of geometrically perfect right-angle turns at full speed, maneuvers that defy the physics of hydrodynamics. The tracking systems on all three naval vessels recorded these impossible movements independently, eliminating the possibility of equipment malfunction. Then came the electromagnetic disturbance. At precisely 4:27 hours, all three ships experienced a simultaneous power fluctuation. Navigation systems flickered, communications dropped, and sonar readings became temporarily distorted. The electromagnetic pulse was so powerful that it was detected by weather satellites overhead, registering as an anomalous electrical storm despite the clear night conditions. It was during this electromagnetic event that crew members on the deck of the HMS Vigilant witnessed what would become the most controversial aspect of the entire incident: the formation of what appeared to be a perfectly cylindrical column of water, rising straight from the ocean's surface into the night sky. The water column, estimated to be approximately 30 meters in diameter, appeared to defy gravity, connecting sea to sky like a pillar. The water wasn't spraying or falling, as you'd expect, reported British officer Sarah Mackenzie. It was as if the water itself was being manipulated at a molecular level, maintaining its structure against gravity. It was like watching the sea part in real time. The column remained for approximately 40 seconds before collapsing back into the Persian Gulf with a thunderous impact that was recorded on seismographs throughout the region. By this time, the underwater object had accelerated to depths beyond the tracking capabilities of the naval vessels. In the aftermath, the three nations involved issued conflicting reports. The French Naval Command acknowledged an unexplained acoustic and electromagnetic anomaly. The British Ministry of Defense classified their findings as inconclusive but warranting further investigation. The U.S. Navy initially categorized the incident as a natural seismic and electromagnetic phenomenon coinciding with exercise operations. What none of these official statements mentioned was the recovery operation that took place 3 days later. Under the cover of a deep-sea cable repair mission, a specialized team from the U.S. Naval Underwater Recovery Unit descended to the seafloor where the object had first been detected. The recovered material, a small fragment of unknown composition, was immediately classified and transported to the Naval Research Laboratory in Washington, D.C. Perhaps most disturbing was the systematic disappearance of data in the weeks following the incident. Sonar recordings, electromagnetic readings, even personal videos taken by crew members all vanished from secured servers or were corrupted beyond recovery. The only remaining evidence of the vortex incident exists in witness testimonies and a handful of sensor readings that were backed up to offline systems. Was this a demonstration of technology far beyond current human capabilities? A natural phenomenon that science cannot yet explain? Or something else entirely? Whatever the truth, the vortex incident stands as one of the most well-documented encounters with an underwater anomaly that challenges our understanding of physics, oceanography, and perhaps our place in the cosmic order. The Mariana Trench bioluminescent entity. During a classified deep-sea mission in 2019, a specialized submersible encountered something massive in the Challenger Deep that emitted light patterns so complex they appeared to be a form of communication. The Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in Earth's oceans, at nearly 36,000 feet below sea level, has always been a place of mystery. More humans have walked on the moon than have descended to this crushing abyss. It was here, in the absolute darkness of the Hadal Zone, that the DSV Kronos, a deep-sea vehicle designed specifically for extreme depth exploration, made contact with something that would challenge our understanding of deep ocean biology. Officially, the mission was designated as a geological survey, part of an international effort to map the Mariana Trench's terrain with unprecedented precision. The true objective, however, was to investigate unusual seismic readings that had been detected in the area over the previous 6 months, vibrations that didn't match known tectonic activity or underwater volcanic processes. The Kronos, carrying a crew of 3 specialized scientists, was deployed from the research vessel Oceanic Explorer on April 12, 2019. The descent was uneventful for the first 30,000 feet. Then, at approximately 32,000 feet down, the submersible's external sensors began detecting an anomalous bioelectric field, something generating electrical impulses far stronger than any known deep-sea creature should be capable of producing. Initially, the crew suspected a malfunction in their equipment, After all, at these depths, the water pressure exceeds 16,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush most conventional submarines like an aluminum can. As the Kronos continued its descent into the trench, the bioelectric readings grew stronger. Then, at 35,812 feet, just short of the seafloor, the crew witnessed something unprecedented. Through the reinforced viewport of the submersible, they observed what seemed at first to be a network of bioluminescent organisms. But as the lights grew in intensity and definition, it became clear that this was a single, massive entity. The scale was impossible to process at first, reported Dr. Alina Cowery, the mission's lead biologist. We were looking at a bioluminescent pattern that stretched across our entire field of vision, moving with coordinated precision. Initial size estimates suggested an organism at least 120 feet in length, significantly larger than a blue whale, but with a morphology unlike anything in our taxonomic records. The entity's anatomical features defied conventional biological classification. It appeared to have a central mass from which extended numerous appendages, not tentacles in the traditional sense of cephalopods, but more like articulated limbs with complex joints. Most striking was its translucent tissue, through which pulsed complex patterns of light that changed in color, intensity, and formation with mathematical precision. What began as simple pulses of blue-green bioluminescence quickly evolved into intricate sequences that repeated with variations, patterns that bore the hallmarks of structured information. Dr. James Chen, the mission's systems analyst, immediately recognized the significance of what they were observing. These weren't random flashes or simple attraction warning signals we typically see in bioluminescent creatures. Chen later noted in his classified report. The patterns contained recursive elements, mathematical constants, and symbol-like formations that repeated with slight modifications, classic characteristics of complex communication systems. The entity's behavior suggested not just intelligence, but curiosity. When the Kronos activated its external lights, the creature initially retreated, but then approached again, modifying its light patterns in what appeared to be a response to the submersible's presence. It maintained a distance of approximately 50 feet, but seemed to study the vessel, its light patterns increasing in complexity and speed. For 72 minutes, the crew of the Kronos observed and recorded the entity's movements and light displays. The submersible sensors detected no aggression or threat behaviors, but all 3 crew members reported an overwhelming sense of being observed, not merely as objects of curiosity, but as subjects being actively analyzed and evaluated. There was an unmistakable sensation of cognitive assessment, Dr. Cowery stated. It felt like making eye contact with an intelligent creature at a zoo, except we were the exhibit. The encounter ended when the entity suddenly accelerated away into the darkness, moving with a speed and agility that should have been impossible for a creature of its size. Its departure was preceded by what the crew described as a crescendo of light patterns, a rapid sequence of complex formations that flashed across its entire body before it disappeared. When the chronos returned to the surface, the data it carried sparked intense debate among the handful of scientists with sufficient security clearance to access it. Marine biologists proposed theories ranging from a previously unknown species of colonial organism to an extreme adaptation of existing deep-sea creatures. Neurologists who studied the light pattern recordings were particularly disturbed by the structural similarities to neural firing patterns in advanced mammalian brains. Most concerning to the scientific community was the discovery, made in the months following the Challenger Deep mission, that similar light patterns had been detected by deep-sea monitoring stations positioned near other oceanic trenches: the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic, the Java Trench in the Indian Ocean, and the Kermadec Trench near New Zealand. These detections, while brief and isolated, suggested not a single entity, but potentially a network of these creatures, communicating across vast oceanic distances through means we don't yet understand. The existence of such biological sophistication at extreme depths, where life was thought to be limited to simple, specialized organisms, raises profound questions about evolution, adaptation, and the potential for intelligence to develop in environments we've long considered too hostile for complex life. It forces us to confront the possibility that while we've been looking to the stars for signs of intelligence beyond our own, another form of non-human intelligence may have been evolving in the darkest depths of our own planet, unseen and unknown until now. The Arctic Circle subglacial installation. In 2018, oil exploration sonar beneath the Arctic ice cap revealed something artificial that shouldn't exist: a massive geometric structure 1,000 feet below the seafloor, with heat signatures suggesting it's active. The discovery came during what should have been a routine resource assessment in the international waters of the Arctic Circle. The Norwegian petroleum research vessel Håkon Mosby was conducting deep penetrating sonar surveys approximately 220 miles north of Svalbard when its equipment detected an anomaly. Initially dismissed as a geological formation, it was only when the ship's more sophisticated ground-penetrating radar was deployed that the true nature of the discovery became apparent. What they found defied explanation: a perfectly geometric structure buried deep beneath the Arctic seafloor. The formation displayed right angles, uniform wall thicknesses, and concentric circular chambers connected by what appeared to be corridors, architectural features that simply don't occur naturally. Most disturbing was its scale. Initial measurements suggested a facility spanning approximately 3 square kilometers, buried beneath nearly 1,000 feet of sediment. The precision was what struck me first, said Dr. Magnus Wahlen, the lead geophysicist aboard the Håkon Mosby. Nature doesn't create perfect 90-degree angles or walls with consistent 3-meter thickness across hundreds of meters. Whatever this is, it was designed and constructed with purpose. The vessel immediately deployed thermal imaging equipment, expecting to find a cold, inert structure. Instead, they detected regular temperature fluctuations throughout the subglacial formation. Certain sections were significantly warmer than the surrounding seafloor, with patterns suggesting the systematic generation and distribution of heat like a circulatory system or power grid still functioning beneath the ocean floor. We observed temperature differentials that followed pathways through the structure. Dr. Vollin's report stated, the patterns strongly suggested active thermal regulation rather than geothermal activity. Something down there is generating energy. Within 72 hours of the discovery, the Haken Mosby received direct orders from the Norwegian Petroleum Directorate to abandon its survey and return to port immediately. All data collected was classified, and the research permits for that specific region of the Arctic were suddenly revoked by international authorities, citing environmental concerns in a sensitive ecosystem. The official explanation came swiftly. The detected structure was likely a previously unknown geological formation caused by ancient volcanic activity, combined with unique pressure conditions found only in Arctic regions. This explanation was quickly endorsed by geological institutions across several countries. However, this consensus explanation failed to address the regular geometry, the isolated heat signatures, or the subsequent military interest in the area. What followed was a coordinated campaign of scientific dismissal from various governmental agencies. The Russian Ministry of Natural Resources suggested the formation was likely a methane hydrate deposit with unusual crystalline properties. The U.S. Geological Survey proposed an ancient meteorite impact site that had been distorted by tectonic forces. The Canadian Department of Fisheries and Oceans suggested the readings were likely the result of equipment malfunction due to extreme Arctic conditions. Yet these contradictory explanations couldn't obscure the sudden and unprecedented international interest in what should have been an obscure corner of the Arctic Ocean. Satellite imagery from the weeks following the discovery showed a convergence of research vessels from multiple nations in the vicinity of the original coordinates vessels, with capabilities far beyond standard research requirements. Perhaps most intriguing was the response from the indigenous Inuit communities of northern Greenland and Canada's Nunavut territory. When news of the discovery leaked through scientific channels, elders from several communities came forward with centuries-old oral traditions speaking of the watchers beneath the ice, entities said to dwell in vast chambers below the frozen sea, occasionally emerging through temporary openings in the ice. Our stories say they were here before the ice came, stated Akaluk Kamenik, an elder from Igloolik. They made a home beneath the waters when the cold became too great. The entrances open when the lights dance in the sky. This reference to the aurora borealis coinciding with activity from the subglacial structure adds another layer to the mystery, especially given that unusual electromagnetic activity has indeed been detected in the region during intense aurora events. In the months following the discovery, unusual submarine activity was detected throughout the Arctic Circle. American, Russian, Chinese, and British submarines were tracked converging near the coordinates of the original finding. Official navigation warnings were issued, designating a 50 nautical mile exclusion zone around the site due to military exercises that were never officially acknowledged by any nation. Most telling was the complete information blackout that descended over the region by early 2019. Satellite coverage of the area became mysteriously degraded. Scientific expedition permits were universally denied. Commercial vessels reported GPS malfunctions when passing within 100 miles of the site. The international scientific community, initially buzzing with theories and requests for data sharing, fell silent on the topic as if a switch had been flipped. What lies beneath the Arctic seafloor? Is it a natural formation that merely resembles intelligent design? An ancient installation from a forgotten human civilization? Or something else entirely? Perhaps evidence that humans aren't the first technologically advanced species to inhabit this planet. The truth remains buried beneath layers of ice, sediment, and secrecy. But one fact stands out. Some of the world's most powerful nations have devoted enormous resources to investigating a structure they officially claim doesn't exist, a structure generating heat and possibly power after being buried for untold millennia beneath one of Earth's most inhospitable environments, the abyssal city of the South Pacific. In late 2021, a deep-sea mining survey stumbled upon what appeared to be an artificial habitat at 12,000 feet below sea level, one showing signs of current occupation. The South Pacific abyssal plain, stretching between Easter Island and the Marquesas, has long been considered one of the most remote and lifeless regions on Earth. Its crushing depths, near freezing temperatures, and almost complete darkness create an environment so hostile that it has remained virtually unexplored. It was here, in what should have been an empty expanse of muddy seafloor, that the unmanned, submersible Nautilus 7, deployed by the deep-sea mining company OceanTech Resources, encountered something that defied explanation. The Nautilus 7 was mapping the seafloor for polymetallic nodules, potato-sized rocks containing valuable minerals that form over millions of years on the abyssal plain. These nodules, rich in manganese, copper, and rare earth elements, represent the next frontier in deep-sea resource extraction. The submersible was following a standard grid pattern when its sensors detected an anomalous structure rising from the seafloor. Initial sonar readings suggested a natural seamount, but as the Nautilus 7 approached, its high-definition cameras revealed something entirely different. A complex of geometric structures that appeared deliberately designed for underwater habitation. What made this discovery particularly unsettling wasn't just the existence of artificial structures at such extreme depths, but evidence suggesting recent activity. The formations weren't ruins in the traditional sense, explained Dr. Eliza Chen, the marine archaeologist who first analyzed the footage. We were looking at structures that appeared to be in active use, surfaces free of the expected sediment accumulation, what appeared to be maintained pathways between buildings, and most disturbing, evidence of deliberate modifications to adapt to the extreme pressure environment. The complex sprawled across approximately half a square kilometer, featuring dome-like structures connected by enclosed tunnels, all constructed from a material that didn't match any known human engineering substance. The material appeared to be a composite that combined metallic elements with something organic, creating a surface that seemed to actively resist the crushing pressure rather than merely withstand it. Most baffling to researchers was the structure's apparent adaptation to the extreme conditions. Rather than simply creating barriers against the environment, the habitat seemed designed to work with the pressure, channeling the enormous force through structural elements in ways that suggested an entirely different approach to deep-sea engineering than anything developed by modern human science. What we're seeing isn't just advanced engineering, it's fundamentally different engineering, noted Dr. James Whitfield, a materials scientist consulted on the discovery. These structures don't just resist compression, they appear to harness it, using the pressure itself as part of their functional design. It's beyond our current technological capabilities by at least several decades, possibly centuries. As the Nautilus 7 continued its survey, its cameras captured what multiple observers have described as movement within and around the structures. Shadowy forms appeared to shift behind transparent sections of the habitat, lights not the bioluminescence common to deep-sea creatures, but steady, artificial illumination were visible through what appeared to be viewing ports or windows. The submersible's external sensors also detected unusual electromagnetic signals emanating from the complex, suggesting active power generation rather than dormant technology. These signals followed patterns too regular to be natural phenomena, displaying the hallmarks of intentional transmission rather than random energy discharge. Survey team attempted to collect samples from the site, but encountered unexpected difficulties. When the Nautilus 7 extended its collection arm toward a small detached fragment of the material, the submersible experienced a complete electrical failure. All systems shut down simultaneously, leaving the vessel dead in the water nearly 12,000 feet below the surface. For exactly 18 hours, the Nautilus 7 remained unresponsive to all communication attempts from the surface vessel. When systems finally came back online, the submersible's internal log showed a complete data gap for the entire 18-hour period. Its collection chambers were empty. Its external cameras had been repositioned. And most troublingly, its location had shifted by nearly half a kilometer from its last recorded position without any recorded propulsion propulsion activity. The recovery team retrieved several artifacts despite these complications: fragments of the unknown material, samples of sediment from the site perimeter, and what appears to be a tablet or control panel with markings in an unidentified writing system. Initial analysis of these artifacts has yielded more questions than answers. The material samples contain alloys with molecular structures, unlike any known manufactured substance, combined with organic compounds that shouldn't be stable under normal conditions. The retrieved tablet features symbols arranged in patterns that linguistic experts have confirmed bear the hallmarks of a true writing system rather than decorative markings, yet match no known script in the archaeological record. Perhaps most disturbing was the discovery made during subsequent attempts to relocate the site. When the research vessel returned to the exact coordinates where the abyssal habitat had been documented, they found nothing but empty seafloor. Multiple passes with sonar equipment revealed no structures, no anomalies, nothing to suggest that the complex had ever existed. The precise GPS coordinates that had led them to the discovery now marked an unremarkable patch of abyssal mud. The only evidence of the encounter remains in the recovered artifacts, the initial survey footage, and the unexplained 18-hour gap in the Nautilus 7's operational log. These fragmentary pieces suggest something profound: that in the crushing darkness of the deep ocean, another form of intelligence may have established a foothold, one with technology advanced enough to survive conditions that push the boundaries of what we consider habitable, and with the capability to conceal its presence when discovered. Is this evidence of non-human intelligence evolving in Earth's least explored environment, a secret installation built by some unknown human organization pushing the boundaries of deep-sea habitation? Or perhaps something even more extraordinary: visitors from elsewhere who found the ocean depths more hospitable than the surface world? Whatever the truth, the abyssal city of the South Pacific stands as a reminder that Earth's final frontier may not be as empty or as uninhabited as we have long assumed. The Gibraltar Underwater Cave Complex. In 2022, marine archaeologists mapping sea caves near Gibraltar discovered a vast network of interconnected caverns containing evidence of an advanced civilization that may have survived the last ice age, completely isolated from the surface world. The discovery began innocently enough. A joint Spanish-British archaeological team was investigating potential coastal migration routes of Neanderthals along the Mediterranean coast, focusing on partially submerged caves near the Strait of Gibraltar. Using advanced sonar and remote-operated vehicles, they hoped to find evidence of ancient habitation in caves that would have been above sea level during the last ice age, when ocean levels were significantly lower. What they discovered instead was a labyrinthine complex of interconnected caverns, extending far beyond what geological processes should have created, a network that showed unmistakable signs of artificial modification and expansion by intelligent hands. The initial entrance, a narrow fissure barely wide enough for their remotely operated vehicle, opened into a cathedral-like chamber more than 200 feet high, with perfectly smooth walls that couldn't have formed naturally. It was immediately apparent we weren't looking at a natural formation, explained Dr. Sofia Hernandez, the lead marine archaeologist on the expedition. The walls had been worked with tools, creating flat surfaces and regular angles. There were carved channels running along the floors and ceilings, something like aqueducts or conduits. Most telling were the supporting columns that appeared to have been deliberately positioned to reinforce the cave ceiling. As the team's ROVs penetrated deeper into the complex, the evidence of intelligent modification became undeniable. They discovered a network extending over 3 miles into the rock beneath Gibraltar, with chambers arranged in what appeared to be functional zones, large communal spaces connected to smaller chambers, storage areas, and what seemed to be workshops or specialized production spaces. Most extraordinary was the preservation. The cave's isolated environment, sealed off from the surface world for millennia, and flooded only relatively recently in geological terms, had created perfect conditions for preserving organic material. Wooden structures, textile fragments, and even plant remains were found in a remarkable state of preservation, protected from decomposition by the unique chemical composition of the water within the cave system. Carbon dating of these materials produced results that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. The wooden supports reinforcing some of the tunnel junctions dated to between 18,000 and 20,000 years ago, the height of the last ice age. This placed the cave system's active use thousands of years before the rise of the earliest known agricultural societies, during a period when humans were thought to live exclusively as nomadic hunter-gatherers. The dating contradicts everything we thought we knew about human technological development during this period, Dr. Hernandez noted. We're looking at evidence of large-scale excavation, architectural planning, and environmental engineering at a time when humans were supposedly living in small nomadic bands, focused exclusively on survival. Even more puzzling were the artifacts. The team recovered tools made from metal alloys that shouldn't have been technically possible to create until the Bronze Age, thousands of years later. Analysis revealed sophisticated metallurgical knowledge, with precisely controlled mixtures of copper, tin, and other elements, creating tools with properties specifically adapted for underwater use tools that showed no signs of corrosion despite millennia of submersion. Among the most significant discoveries was a collection of tablets bearing an unknown writing system. The symbols, geometric patterns arranged in ordered sequences, showed all the hallmarks of true writing rather than decorative or symbolic markings. Linguistic experts confirmed the system contained too many unique characters and consistent patterns to be anything but a method of recording language. Yet this writing predates the oldest known scripts, such as Sumerian cuneiform, by at least 13,000 years. If verified, this completely rewrites the timeline of human linguistic development, explained Dr. Marcus Chen, a paleolinguist who analyzed the findings. It suggests that writing didn't emerge gradually from accounting and record keeping in early agricultural societies, as we've always believed. This appears to be a fully developed writing system existing millennia before it should be possible. Perhaps most unsettling were the preserved remains discovered in a sealed chamber deep within the complex. The team recovered what appeared to be deliberately preserved bodies, showing a mixture of recognizable human anatomical features, alongside unexplained variations, individuals with unusual skeletal proportions, enlarged eye sockets, and bone density significantly higher than modern humans. These differences were too significant to be explained by normal human variation, yet not dramatic enough to suggest a different species entirely. These individuals appear to represent a highly specialized adaptation to deep cave living, proposed Dr. Eliza Thornton, the physical anthropologist who examined the remains. The skeletal modifications suggest generations of adaptation to low light, high humidity, and possibly higher pressure environments. This isn't evolution on a species level. It's a dramatic example of how humans can physically adapt to extreme environments within a relatively short evolutionary timeframe. The implications of these findings are profound. They suggest the possibility that while surface-dwelling humans were living in small bands of hunter-gatherers during the last ice age, another branch of humanity may have developed a sophisticated subterranean civilization, complete with writing, advanced metallurgy, and architectural engineering, a parallel development of human civilization that evolved in isolation from the surface world. The Gibraltar complex might have continued to yield its secrets, but nature intervened. 3 months into the investigation, a series of minor earthquakes struck the Strait of Gibraltar region. Though causing minimal damage on land, the seismic activity had catastrophic effects on the delicate cave system. New fissures opened in the cave walls, allowing powerful currents to surge through the complex. Chambers that had remained in perfect equilibrium for thousands of years were suddenly flooded with sediment-laden seawater. By the time conditions stabilized enough for exploration to resume, much of the complex had been altered beyond recognition. Tunnels had collapsed, artifacts had been swept away, and the careful archaeological context, crucial for scientific understanding, had been destroyed. In a final blow to the research effort, a laboratory fire at the University of Seville destroyed most of the recovered artifacts, including all but one of the writing tablets and the preserved remains. What remains is fragmentary evidence of what might be the most significant archaeological discovery in human history, tantalizing hints of a forgotten branch of human civilization that developed in parallel to our known history, following a completely different evolutionary and technological path in the darkness beneath the sea. The final missing link, the sunken ruins of Zealandia. In 2023, a geological survey mapping the submerged continent of Zealandia stumbled upon what appears to be the remains of an ancient megalithic civilization, one that thrived on land masses now hundreds of feet beneath the Pacific Ocean. Zealandia, the mostly submerged landmass east of Australia that scientists formally recognized as Earth's eighth continent only in 2017, has long intrigued geologists. Once above water and comprising approximately 1.9 million square miles of land, it sank beneath the waves following the last ice age, leaving only New Zealand and New Caledonia as its visible remnants. For decades, it was considered nothing more than an interesting geological formation, devoid of human history due to its submergence approximately 23,000 years ago, supposedly long before humans reached this part of the Pacific. This scientific consensus was shattered in March 2023 when the research vessel Tangaroa, conducting a detailed seafloor mapping project, detected unusual formations on a submerged plateau approximately 300 miles east of New Zealand's North Island. What initially appeared to be natural formations became increasingly suspicious as the ship's advanced multi-beam sonar revealed perfect geometric alignments and regular spacing that simply doesn't occur in nature. We were looking at what appeared to be walls, foundation platforms, and monolithic structures arranged in patterns consistent with ceremonial sites found throughout the Pacific, explained Dr. Nathan Whitaker, the marine archaeologist called in to evaluate the sonar data. Except these were on a scale that dwarfs anything in the archaeological record. Follow-up investigations using remotely operated vehicles confirmed what the sonar had suggested: an expansive site of clearly artificial origin spread across over 15 square kilometers of the seafloor, now resting under 180 feet of water. Stone blocks, some weighing an estimated 50 tons, had been precisely cut and fitted together to create structures that have survived millennia underwater with their integrity intact. Most impressive was what researchers have dubbed the calendar circle, a perfect ring of standing monoliths, each approximately 30 feet tall, arranged with astronomical precision. Computer modeling confirmed that the alignment of these stones would have tracked solstices, equinoxes, and various stellar events with remarkable accuracy when the site was above water. The engineering knowledge required to erect these monuments exceeds what should have been available in this region during that time period, noted Dr. Amelia Chen, an archaeoastronomer who analyzed the site. We're looking at mathematical and astronomical understanding that rivals ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, but potentially thousands of years earlier, and in a place where no advanced civilization was thought to exist. Carbon dating of organic material found embedded between the megalithic blocks has yielded dates ranging from 26,000 to 30,000 years ago, a time when modern humans were thought to have barely begun their migration into the Pacific Islands. This timeline would place the Zealandia civilization among the oldest ever discovered, predating established sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey by at least 10,000 years. Perhaps most perplexing was the discovery of what appears to be a written language preserved in carvings on numerous stone surfaces throughout the site. The symbols, a complex system of spirals, concentric circles, and angular patterns, bear striking similarities to Rongorongo, the undeciphered writing system of Easter Island, located thousands of miles to the east. This connection suggests the possibility of a shared cultural origin or influence spanning much of the Pacific. If this link is confirmed, it would completely rewrite Pacific settlement history, stated Dr. Mona Kalani, a linguist specializing in Polynesian language systems. We may be looking at evidence that a sophisticated maritime civilization existed in the Pacific tens of thousands of years before we thought possible, one that potentially influenced cultures across the entire ocean basin. The archaeological team also recovered artifacts that defy conventional historical timelines. Stone tools exhibiting precision cutting that would be difficult to achieve even with modern techniques. Ceramics with glazes requiring kilns capable of temperatures not thought achievable until much later in human history. Most controversial was the recovery of small objects made from an alloy of platinum and iridium metals that are exceedingly rare and require sophisticated metallurgical knowledge to work with. These artifacts exhibit manufacturing techniques that shouldn't have existed in that time period, Dr. Whitaker noted. Either we're completely wrong about the technological capabilities of ancient Pacific cultures, or this civilization had knowledge that was subsequently lost to humanity for tens of thousands of years. The implications extend beyond archaeology into our understanding of human development. If confirmed, the Zealandia civilization would represent a missing link in human technological evolution, an advanced society that developed in isolation on a now submerged continent, potentially achieving cultural and technological sophistication far earlier than our current models suggest possible. Most intriguing are the parallels between this discovery and persistent legends throughout Polynesian cultures referring to a lost homeland called Hawiki or Hawi, a place described as the ancestral origin point from which all Polynesian peoples dispersed throughout the Pacific. These oral traditions speak of a great land that sank beneath the waves, forcing survivors to flee to distant islands. For centuries, these stories were dismissed as myths or allegories, but the Zealandia ruins suggest they may contain kernels of historical truth. We're seeing compelling evidence that ancient oral traditions throughout the Pacific may be preserving memories of actual historical events, explained Dr. Kalani. These aren't just creation myths. They may be generationally transmitted records of a devastating geological event that reshaped human history in this region. Climate scientists and geologists have suggested that the final submergence of the Zealandia landmass could have occurred relatively rapidly in geological terms, with significant portions potentially flooding within human memory. Abrupt sea level rises at the end of the last ice age, potentially accelerated by localized geological subsidence, could have transformed a once thriving civilization into a memory preserved only in myth. What remains unanswered is the fate of this civilization's people. Did they perish as their homeland sank beneath the waves? Or did some escape to become the ancestors of later Pacific cultures? The genetic and cultural diversity of Pacific Islanders has long puzzled anthropologists. Could this be explained by the diaspora of a once unified people forced to adapt to widely scattered island environments after the loss of their original homeland? The Zealandia discovery forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the gaps in our understanding of human history. How many other chapters of humanity's story might lie beneath the oceans, which cover more than 70% of our planet's surface? How many advanced societies might have risen and fallen, leaving only the faintest traces in myth and legend, their physical remains hidden beneath hundreds of feet of water? As research continues into this extraordinary site, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The history of human civilization may be far older, far more complex, and far more globally interconnected than we have ever imagined.